Hey Ryan, not just in the way you develop, but does this confirm that you're doing things coming out of high school?
I'd like to think so. I mean, I think that it's a combination of things. I think, first off, you want to find the talent. The second thing you want to find is the fit. And then with that, okay, now the culture and, mixing that talent up with development. And I think all of those things come into play. And so I think that, we're doing a good job of identifying the talent. We're doing a really good job of identifying the fit and the type we want in the program. And then I think our development right now is off the charts. So if we can just keep enhancing that, then the future's going to be, looking good.
And following up on that, how much do you pay attention? There's all these rankings and 4-star, 5-star. You've got your first two guys, Chase and Jeff were 5-star guys. Do you have your own evaluation system? I know Mark handles that, but or do you confer and really pay attention to the scouting, the scouting sites that are out there?
Well, I think that a lot of the scouting sites base their rankings off of who the schools offer. I'm sure that they do of giving guys 3, 4, and 5 stars is based on the type of offers they get. And so, we don't base anything off of what's, stars you have. I mean, you look at the guys in the first round, there was some 5, there was some 4, there was some 3, there was some guys who weren't even ranked. So, that doesn't really matter. And it's the same thing with the draft picks. Guys who are first rounders still have to go play. But yeah, what we do is, Mark starts with the evaluation and he watches the film and evaluates the film, watches the highlights, watches the game film, and then the position coaches and then, coordinators and myself will watch the film as well and just give our evaluation of where we think they are and then where we think they're headed. And stars and all that stuff. Sometimes it has to do with the exposure they get. Are they going to camps? Are they doing different things? But at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of influence based on the type of offers they get. And if the kid has, offers from some of the best schools in the country, and that means multiple staffs have respect for his talent level and his potential, then he probably deserves, a higher ranking. But at the end of the day, rankings don't mean anything once you get there. You got to go produce. And that's why I'm so proud of Chase and Jeff, just the way that they, in 3 years, came in here and then really, flourished in the third year.
Thanks.
Next up, Spencer Holbrook from Lettermen Row with Nathan Baird on deck. Spencer?
Hey, Ryan, when you have a guy like Brandon Bowen, who's one of the anchors of your offensive line, and then you see him drop all the way unranked, is that more of a talking point to the guys on the team now of just how difficult it is to get to the NFL, even though you're a starter at Ohio State and you're doing really good things at Ohio State? Is that kind of a talking point that you can use to kind of show these guys still on the roster, hey, it's not as easy as just playing at Ohio State?
Yeah, it's difficult. But, I think that all these guys just want their opportunity. And certainly when you look at offensive line, there's a lot of offensive linemen who make good careers out of the NFL who are undrafted. But it is hard. It's very, very difficult. I mean, Brandon Bowen, I thought, played very, very well this season. He certainly had, his injuries along the way, but he was healthy this season and played really, really well for us. So, I mean, he's an NFL caliber talent. And now that he gets his opportunity, it's just about making the best of that opportunity. But it is difficult. I mean, there's a lot of people vying for those spots. And I think at the end of the day, some of those guys, they just need an opportunity to get on the field. And I think when Brandon gets his opportunity, he's going to make it count.
Is there another talking point where when you have so many guys go in the first round from the secondary that the expectation is just so high for the newer guys coming in? Is that something that's discussed just within that secondary group of, all of these guys are getting selected in the first round, that's the standard? And how do you see that progression of these guys coming up, living to that?
Well, the first thing we talk about is just being a great player at Ohio State. That if he happen, because a lot of these guys they want winners. They want guys who compete. They want guys who are durable. They want guys who win championships. That's a big part of this thing. But and guys that compete with the best. I think that has a lot to do with it. There were several teams that asked to see Jeff's one-on-ones against some of our wide receivers over the last couple of years, and that's a big part of it as well. But yeah, the expectation is certainly that we talk about what's the expectation of being a quarterback at Ohio State is to be a Heisman Trophy winner. That's the same thing in the secondary. It's to win the Thorpe Award and go become really the best you can possibly be at the position, and then have an opportunity to go the NFL draft at the highest round. I don't think that the guys are sitting around saying we all have to be first round draft picks as much as they're just trying to maximize themselves. But certainly the blueprint is there.
Next up, Nathan Baird with Cleveland.com and Tim May on deck. Nathan?
Thanks, Ryan. How much does finding and developing first round or upper round quarterback talent for the NFL draft fit into your long-term vision for this program?
I think that's huge. I think that when I first got here, it wasn't something that was had really been done before, and it really took it upon myself as a challenge to try to I say it to the staff all the time. If you're a position coach at Ohio State, then you should be if we're DBU and you're the DB's coach, you've done your job. I mean, if you're the quarterback coach at Ohio State, you should be quarterback you. If you're the running back coach, it should be running back you. Because to me, if you're really doing your job and doing a great job at your position of recruiting and developing, I mean, this is defensive end you right now because Larry Johnson's recruited at a high level and developed. Well, I think at each position that should be the goal, and that was the standard that I was charged with when I got here, and I think we're building it up. And we're not there yet. We've obviously we're making progress in the right direction, but a lot still to be worked on, and we got to keep developing the guys we have in the program now and keep recruiting at a high level. But I think between receivers and quarterbacks, we've done a good job here in the last couple of years. We just got to keep building on it.
You were talking before about the recruiting process and finding fit and talent and all that stuff. Is anything about that different as you're evaluating quarterbacks? Is that position special in some way?
Yeah, it is special. It is. I mean, it's very unique. Only, typically, one guy plays, and so it's just unique that way. Obviously, our story over the last few years is, I guess it's not typical, but it's certainly unique in that we Tate left and Matt Baldwin left and Joe left, and then Dwayne came in and Justin came in, and just now more than ever the college quarterback position is a very sensitive situation where guys want to come in and play, and with the transfer situation and everything going on there, there's a lot at play, and so the best we can do is just develop and communicate and try to bring in the right guys who want to be Buckeyes, and just want to keep grinding and learn and get developed. Because one of the things that we take pride in too is the fact that at quarterback, whether you're playing right now as a freshman or you're the backup, you're developing. And I use Joe for an example. Joe developed here, although he didn't play much when he was here. He developed at a high level and learned our offense, and I believe that had a lot to do with his success. And so it's the same thing. You're coming into an offense that is a pro-style offense. You're going to be learning about protections and pass progressions, and you're going to be coached at an NFL level.
Thanks a lot.
Next up, Tim May from Lettermen Row with Bill Landis on deck. Tim?
Yeah, Ryan, the dynamic of college football teams has changed so dramatically, at least in my lifetime. I remember when Joe Namath came along, I was a big Alabama fan growing up, and I knew he was going to be there playing for 3 years, and now if you're good enough, you're gone. And I'm just wondering, how has it changed? And you've spoken about this a little bit before, but how has it changed just the dynamic of building a team now that that if a guy's really good, just when he gets really good, he's going to be gone. But, is it just literally you got to focus on that 1 year and get the most out of him? Just sort of what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's something that you can get frustrated with, or you can embrace it. And I think that's something we've talked, and our staff has talked about, is just at Ohio State, the right balance of young, talented guys, like Dwayne Haskins or Chase Young or Jeff Okuda, who are only going to be here for 3 years, mixed in with fourth and fifth year seniors who are veteran and been around the program with great leadership and maturity. And I think that's, this year we have Justin Hilliard and Jonathan Cooper. We're hoping to hear about C.J. Saunders. There's fifth year seniors in the program who bring a maturity level to the table. And when you mix that in with very, very talented, sometimes generational talent, I think that's the right recipe. And so, again, the maturity and leadership mixed in with the talent is where you could find something special. So we try to find that balance. We try to strike that balance within the 85, and then we go from there. And each year, obviously, there's a different dynamic. It is frustrating this year that we're not together, so it's hard to kind of find that harmony right now as a group. But these guys have played a lot of football, and we do have a veteran group. So once we get back together, we'll feel what that flow is and what that dynamic is. But that's the goal, and it's not always perfect, but that's what we're striking for.
And the other thing, obviously J.K. Dobbins opted to leave. Some people projected him maybe late first round, early second. He slipped to the middle of the second. I know this is like, looking in a rearview mirror now, but did he make a mistake, or is that just kind of like the chance you take when you opt to leave?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of teams that, if they were drafting a running back, probably would have taken him sooner, and it just, I think it just worked out that way. But I think that he's got his opportunity. He's going to make it work. He's in a great organization there, and so I think that's a great fit. I think that's the most important thing, is finding that right fit. But all that being said, I think J.K. felt like it was his time, and sometimes for running backs, they have so many carries in that body. And J.K. isn't, a big, 6'2", 240-pound back, and so I totally understood that and supported him in his decision. Would we have loved to have him back? Of course we would have. But I think that it made sense. It could have gone either way, but I'm glad for him, and I think his career is going to go great.
Hey, one other quickie. Is there one guy that you're disappointed in what happened to him over the weekend? Would it be Brandon Bowen? I haven't heard from B.B. Landers yet. I don't know if he signed yet or with someone or not, but is there any player that you feel really got looked over?
Yeah, I think KJ Hill. I don't that one I don't understand. To go in the 7th round to see so many guys drafted before him. All he does is get open, catch the ball, make great plays, and the most productive receiver in Ohio State history. I don't get that one at all. Certainly there's a lot of guys that I could comment on, but that's the one that sticks out to me. The Chargers got a complete steal, and I think a lot of guys, missed on him.
Thanks, man.
Yep. Next up, Bill Landis from The Athletic with Joey Kaufman on deck. Bill?
Thanks, Jerry. Hey, Ryan. Just wanted to ask you about, you have a quarterback in Justin now who basically from today until the end of next season is sort of going to be in these conversations about first or second best quarterback, top 5 pick, all that kind of stuff. And it's I know Dwayne eventually got into that conversation, but Justin's sort of in it from the jump here. I'm just wondering how you approach that with him. And I know your team goals kind of supersede everything, but do you do anything to help him achieve what I'm assuming is a goal for him to be a very highly drafted quarterback in the next draft?
Well, that was the conversation all along, is that, we'll put him in position to go to New York City and to be a first-round draft pick. And it's his job to be a great leader and bring a championship back to Ohio State. And so, I think that there's a certain level of trust there, and his development up in this past year has been tremendous. Still got a long way to go. But I think there's a level of trust there. And, based on how it goes this season, we either say, you're ready to go and go get it, or, maybe you need another year. But I don't think those discussions are for now. Because the idea is that you want to go into that league ready to roll. Joe's 5 years in to college football. He's a grown man ready to roll. And I think that's important, is that, when guys go in there, there's a body of work under their belt, and they can kind of jump in and take off from there. And so, based on how the season goes, we'll see. We'll sit down with he and his family, and a lot of things have to go right too. It's easy to say that now, and hopefully, if that's the case, that means they had another really good year. So, again, we'll kind of attack that stuff as we get closer to next December and January.
And you've been on kind of both sides of this, been in the NFL evaluating guys to draft and obviously developing guys to get drafted now. A guy like KJ, when he has so much production, but maybe his testing numbers are a little lower than maybe what the NFL would like, or at least a little lower than the guys at his position that go higher than him. Like, what are those conversations like, and how do you balance out the traits versus the production stuff?
Again, everybody's different in how they go about their business, so I'm not sitting here telling anybody how to do their business, but I just know that, some great coaches have said, the best receivers, they get open and they catch the ball, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, what you run or anything like that. Do you get open? Do you catch the ball? And however you do that. Now, if you're not fast enough to get open or you can't catch the ball, then that's a problem. But I've never seen anybody cover KJ Hill at a consistent basis. And so, I think it'll be the same way once he gets in the NFL.
Thanks.
Hey, Ryan. I just wanted to ask you about in most years it'd be pretty challenging for a guy to make a late round guy, undrafted free agent guy, to make a 53-man roster. And this year they're not going to get the benefit of going through the rookie mini camp and the mini camp because of the pandemic. How hard is it going to be for those guys to impress just NFL teams without those opportunities?
Rookie mini camp isn't a very long period of time, but certainly it is an opportunity to open people's eyes. And so hopefully if there is a preseason camp the way it's been with the preseason games and those type of things, there'll still be enough time for those guys to open some eyes and impress. But, you're right. If there's no OTAs, there's no rookie mini camp, there's no off-season program, there's none of that stuff. It certainly makes it harder to make an impression in a short period of time. But, again, hopefully if there's preseason with preseason games and all that, then there'll be a good opportunity there.
Mm-hmm. How when you were in the NFL, did you guys rely on that window? Like, what point in the off-season calendar did you guys really lean on to evaluate rookies?
Well, you kind of look at your roster and you figure out, who's coming back and where you have needs, and then as you get going to the OTAs and rookie mini camp, you get a feel for their talent level and the way they work. But then it really matters when you get into the games because we're really not practicing in full pads very often. So once you get going with the games, that's when you get a feel for who guys are. And the guys who make plays typically are the ones who end up making rosters or at least the practice squad.
Thanks.
All right, next up is Tony Girdman from the Ozone with Doug Lesmerises on deck. Tony?
Hey, Ryan, regarding KJ, as you're watching that last night, what's going through your mind? Are you getting angry? Are you getting frustrated? Or, what's your feeling as that's happening?
Just probably the same way everybody else was, just a little confused. And yeah, I would say a little frustrated. But hey, listen, there's a lot of guys who have been in the same boat and they go on to have great careers. So again, all these guys need our opportunities, and they all kind of have the same opportunity. Certainly guys who were drafted in the first round probably have a little bit more than the undrafted free agents. But still, all you really need is that chance to get on the field and improve what you have, and then it'll come down to making a team and then hopefully making that second contract like so many of them have.
And we talked to the assistant coaches last week, and they mentioned Kevin and I think Kerry mentioned your circle of care. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, how you came up with that, and how that is now part of just building to, I guess, the draft day for the players in terms of the well-rounded, getting them where they need to be.
Yeah, that's just a way for us to kind of encapsulate everything that we have in the program and just kind of wrap it up and explain it to the recruits, everything that we have. And, it's got a good response, and I think people appreciate it and respect everything that we put into the program and the resources we pour into the student athlete. Because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And every program has to decide, how they want to spend their money. And with Gene Smith and our administration and our program and organization and, Urban Meyer, the amount of money over the years that's been poured into the program is just off the charts. And because of that, the student athletes benefit.
Thanks.
All right, next up is Doug Lesmerises from Cleveland.com with Bill Rabinowitz on deck. Doug?
Hey, Ryan. I know you guys want to develop every player in your program to the best way possible, but specifically with just the super elite talented guys, the 5 stars like Jeff and Chase and Justin, guys like that. Chase and Jeff both went from top 10 national recruits to top 10 NFL picks. And maybe you'd look at that and say, well, that's what should happen. That's easy. But I know that's not the case. What is the key to really developing guys like that who have super high goals, who come in with obvious elite talented traits? What do you have to do to bring the best out of the best, most talented guys and get them into the first round?
Yep. Because there's a lot of guys who are in the same boat that don't end up in the first round. And so I just think that it's the combination of everything that we have at Ohio State, our resources that are in place, our coaches, and the way that we develop in the weight room, the way that work ethic and everything that Coach Mick does. So the physical development, the emotional and mental development, and then the football development. You look at what Kerry Combs and what Jeff Hafley did with Jeff Okudah, and then you look what Larry Johnson did with Chase Young, and the list goes on and on and on. And so it's all of those things mixed up into one. And then the last part of it is, and this is why so many recruits decide to come to Ohio State, is that every day you're going against the best. So when Chase Young is a freshman, he's going against DeMarco Jones every day. Now if you're a freshman and you're, DeJuan Jones, you're going against Chase Young every day. If you're Jonah Jackson, you're going against Devon Hamilton every day. Jeff Okudah was going against, Terry McLaurin every day. And so you're playing against great players every day. And that competition only makes you better. We say iron sharpens iron, and that's a big deal and something we take a lot of pride in.
And Ryan, you mentioned this a little bit ago, the idea of when you build the roster, if you have those super elite talented guys and then you have those fifth-year veteran experienced leaders, that you think that's the roster, that's the way to really win. Can you recruit to that? I mean, obviously we understand you're going to try to recruit the elite talented guys, but is there a way that in recruiting you can find guys who you think, I think this guy might be a 4 or 5 year guy who's going to be a great leader for us? Or is that too hard to do in recruiting and you just try to get the best guys and then see how their careers go?
I think in today's recruiting, everybody wants to play. And I think that the way that college coaches recruit, so many of them tell them they're going to come in and play right away, which is actually that's not how it works. You have to earn the opportunity to go play right away. And so I think that to recruit somebody and tell them they're going to come in and play right away, you don't know that. They have to go earn it. And so what we do is, we try to be as honest as we can. We tell them all the reasons why they should choose Ohio State, and then we try to find the right culture fit. And, we want them to choose Ohio State for all the right reasons, not just to go to the NFL. I mean, that's certainly a great selling point, but that can't be the only reason you come to be a Buckeye. And so along the way, what happens is, some guys, they just naturally play early, and then some guys it takes a little longer, whether it's injuries or other reasons. And certain guys step up in terms of their leadership. But if you're looking for those guys first, then you're going to have enough of them as they hang around in the program for 4 and 5 years where you can really grab on to some of those leaders. But that has to be part of the recruiting process for us. And again, finding the right people with, that've been brought up the right way with great families and great academic backgrounds and leadership skills are off the charts and, former captains. We can find enough of those, then eventually if they're in the program for, 4 and 5 years, the program is going to take over and their leadership is just going to take off. And so everybody we bring into the program, we want them to come in and play as early as they can. And then hopefully if we're bringing in the right kids, we'll have enough leaders as time goes on.
Thanks. Next up, Bill Rabinowitz from the Columbus Dispatch, and then we'll wrap up this call with Austin Ward. Bill?
Hi, Ryan. When we talked to Kerry Combs last week, he, not surprisingly, said he's kind of climbing the walls given his energy level. He's got big shoes to fill with Jeff Hafley leaving, and he doesn't want to overhaul the defense, but he wants to put his touches on it. What's the challenge for him trying to do that, given the fact that he obviously can't be hands-on with his guys?
Well, I mean, the good thing for Kerry is he's only been gone for a couple of years, so I mean, he knows everything that's going on here. I mean, he recruited Sean Wade and Tariq Johnson and some of these guys, so I mean, it's not like he's coming into a situation where he doesn't know the guys in that room. Some of them he doesn't, but he's, he works fast, so he's got that background, and then there's already a system in place here. So, I mean, he's smart enough to understand, what we did last year, but then also he has some really good ideas and really good tweaks that that'll be ready to roll. But without having the spring, it's not going to be as easy, but that's where these meetings and Zoom meetings are. We're trying to utilize those as best we can and have some good change-ups and different ideas. And then once we get together again in the preseason, we'll look at that some more. But I think it certainly is harder to install if you're not practicing. That's for sure. But the good news is, with Greg Madison and Larry and everybody already here, there's a system in place that the kids know. And then over time, we'll just keep adding to it.
And I know that you're trying to oversee with Zoom and whatever else the players who are obviously spread out all over the country. Can you give a sense of specifically what you're doing to monitor and oversee the players in terms of their weightlifting, drills, everything, I guess?
Yeah, we're not required. We're not allowed to require them to do anything. That's by the NCAA, and so there's certain rules that we're actually governed by right now because we're not able to, have a first aid group there or trainers there when they're working out. But we're allowed to give them a workout plan that they can do, and then they can communicate to the strength coaches, but not the coaches themselves. There's just a lot of rules there that the NCAA has imposed. So we just challenge our guys that it's all about our discipline. And I had a leadership meeting last week and talked to the older guys about challenging the young guys and trying to hold those guys accountable by units. But we're limited right now in terms of what we can actually require them to do. And, they're in finals coming up here in the next week, so that's even more difficult. But again, this is a test to find out, how much discipline we have and can we gain an edge against our opponents.
Do you know where BB Landers is going?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, thank you, guys. We'll wrap up the call now with questions from Austin Ward from Lettermen Row. Austin?
Hey, Ryan, when you think back about that iron versus iron and those matchups on the practice field, what has been your favorite matchup that you've seen or series of matchups that you've seen on the roster the last couple of years?
I don't know if there was just one. I mean, just so many of them. It's fun watching, JK try to run a route on Malik Harrison or pick him up in pass protection. And it's fun to watch Jeff Okuda compete against all those guys. I mean, chase against the defensive ends and, just barking at each other, yelling. Even, Justin, start to get at it, get after it against, the other guys on defense and kind of bark at each other a little bit and compete. And that's the idea. Watching Hartline, yell at Hafley or yell at Combs even in the first couple practices. I mean, that's what it's all about. Guys love competing and having fun. So there's a lot of it going on all over the field. I don't know if I could just pick one.
And just to follow up on what Bill asked you earlier about, Justin and the conversation that you were asked about it, I think, yesterday on one of your media appearances. Are you going to do you have to change the conversation with him and the attention as it gets ramped up? Like, any idea of how you guys will handle that, or if it'll be different at all than the first year in the program?
No, it won't change at all. I mean, first off, Justin's a guy where, there's just been that kind of hype around him ever since he picked up a football, whether it was the number one recruit in the country, QB1, transferring from Georgia, going to the Heisman this year, and now it'll be the NFL draft. But that's part of becoming a quarterback at Ohio State, and it'll be the same way with the younger guys. So, no, that stuff won't really come up at all until we start getting closer to the, like I said, December, January.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row.
We got Letterman Live, we've got the practice report, we got rapid reaction. Hey, and we got Buck IQ with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Lettermen Row.